Hello. Hello. Okay, so I wanted to come on here and share. I don't. It must be the light. Is that better? Okay. Um, I wanted to come on here and share some thoughts that I had and some new findings. Um, I want. I want to begin by reading out this verse from the Bible. I'm only laughing because I'm not instinctually, but because of my nurture, I'm uh, uncomfortable saying that because I'm just like, I know what I mean, but there's always the undertone around religion that's a little like, "Ugh," because of how I grew up and the systems and the history. Anyways, I'm going to read this. I was saying to my dad today, like the Bible is not just for Christians, or it's not. The Bible is scientific knowledge, the same way Plato's writings are scientific knowledge and should be accessible to all, the same way Galileo's writings are scientific knowledge and should be accessible to all. The Bible, the Quran, all sacred spiritual writings are scientific knowledge that should be accessible for all. And then your skill level in being able to interpret that and understand that and build upon that depends on who you are and what your path is in this life. But we should all have the opportunity to engage with it, at higher levels, at whatever level you want to engage with it, and be taken seriously in that practice, in that art, because it's important that we begin to have new perspectives. We've kind of been at like a stalemate when it comes to growth on the spiritual scientific side. And it's been very important that we've had the accelerations that we have had in science on a um, more logical level, post scientific revolution, as I'm learning from my astronomy class that I've been taking. I really learned that today when I was doing the final. I got a lot of information because I was actually focused. But it was really cool information, and it's kind of what's helped trigger some of this conversation that I want to have today. And I had a bunch of different notes, but one of the notes before I read you this quote that I wrote down was, our Galileo and our Kepler haven't been born yet, but our Plato and our Socrates are here. So in my final, one of the questions was talking about Copernicus and Copernicanism, which was talking about the heliocentric view of the solar system, of our solar system, and how that was brought about by Nicholas Copernicus. And at the time that he brought it about, which I think was like 15th century AD, let me see. When was Copernicus? Yeah, so 15th century, kind of late 14th century. When that was happening, obviously we were at a time when religion was still the ruler and the church was very, very important, and the idea of the sun at the center completely challenged, all of our ideas of the earth and its grandiose place in the solar system and therefore in the universe, and our closeness to God and our level of importance and value, because the earth is also seen as God's, uh, so we really valued our position as center because the center was seen as the most important. So to have the sun in that position instead was a real blow to a lot of comfortable understandings of the universe, which left a lot up to play and up to God. Um, but that God was whoever the church decided God was. And so that left a lot of room for abuse of power. So Copernicus was super important in being able to challenge that institution through science and through pushing a science that was more so based in calculations and evidence and repeatable patterns or repeatable experiments. And it's really important, though, to understand that the science that we have now is literally just the more scientific expression of astrology. And astrology is science and science is astrology, and the same way that you like this goes for both sides, because there are people who take astrology very seriously and then don't put as much weight in science, and there are people who take science very seriously and don't put as much weight in astrology, but they are the same thing. It's just that we needed science as we know it now and as we name it now, though that really is a complicated mirage of things. We needed science to excel and to go ahead of where astrology could go, because we needed to get certain points across. But now that we've been able to do that, it's time to create more room to allow more spiritual examinations of the universe on a serious academic level, on a serious scientific level. We need to allow that into the conversation now. And one of the points that Kepler made, or that Galileo made, was that the reason why scientists of today, of his day, and this can apply to today as well, the reason why they are so skilled and their findings were more specific and more detailed and more accurate was because of improved technology and access to incredible wealths of history, and scientific calculations that had been done by people who looked at the sky instead of reading. They had to make all of their judgments from seeing rather than reading. And the idea, reading versus seeing, are completely different modes of study. And there's a privilege with reading because it means that you have been given something. Someone else has looked at this, written about it, and now this is something that you can reference while also looking at that. It creates a system, it creates a connecting point, versus seeing is just you and the thing. And so there's a level of access there that helps to create more accuracy. And it's very important to understand that with the ancients, it's not that they were less intelligent, they just didn't have access to the technology that we have. And had they had that, they would be coming to the same conclusions. It's not that they were less aware or anything like that. It's never about that. It's just about what technology you have access to at that time. And so right now, we are in an age of the scientific advancements of astrology. And the spiritual science is beginning to make their way in the same way that the science that we know today was beginning to make its way during the religious rush, of the Middle Ages, the religious reign of the Middle Ages. The way that science is trying to make its come up then, it was a battle, it was a movement, it was underground, it was rebellious, it was revolutionary. That is happening now with the spiritual sciences, and the thinkers that we have on the planet right now are the Platos and the Aristotles and the Socrates and the Ptolemies. They're not the Galileos, they're not the Keplers. That's going to be a few centuries down. The people that we have now are the philosophers. They are the people that are just making inferences, they're making connections, they're making hypotheses. We don't yet have the technology to be able to back that up in a way that is sound and considered legitimate by the scientific systems that we have right now in this world, that set the standard for what can be considered truth and fact and what cannot. But it doesn't mean that it's not correct. It's going to be built upon the next few centuries, and then we are going to get to our Galileos and our Keplers that can back people of today who are the Copernicuses. It's like we've got to range, because, and there's perhaps actually going to be, maybe it'll be in a few years that it's the Copernicuses, but it is this energy of, it's the philosophers right now that we have access to, and these are philosophers because they don't have the technology. When they get the technology, they'll become the scientists. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of what tech is here. We don't have the spiritual technology that we need, but it's coming. And I think somebody was saying we're still in the age of Capricorn, which absolutely makes sense, because we are still in this system. when we move into the age of Aquarius, that's when we will begin to start to see some of that spiritual technology that we need. I got these new cards and I love them. I love them, and I feel really connected to them, and I really am so intrigued by the stories that are being told. This is the Orisha Tarot, and I just wanted to I didn't want to share that. Well, I wasn't like sharing the deck with you guys, but I just wanted to shuffle it, I guess. Um, oh, right. There was a quote that I wanted to read. So, um, I'll go to that. Oh, and this quote came to me, or this verse came to me because I got in my head, I started saying, all these verses in my head, figure why they call me verse 8. All these verses in my head, figure why they call me verse 8. And I didn't know what that meant, but I was like, okay. So then I went to go look up, I just Googled verse 8. And it took me to one thing first, talking about verse 8 in Romans, and it talks about making sure that you live through Christ, the Spirit, and that helps you live a life away from sin and death, and instead live a life in life, something like that. And then it talked about the number 8 and that being a new beginning, and a new spiritual beginning. And now I'm reading verse 8, Deuteronomy, and I wanted to read it because I thought it was really interesting. So it says, for the Lord your God is bringing you into a good country, a land with streams of water, with springs and fountains welling up in the hills and valleys, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, of olive trees and honey, a land where you will always have bread and where you will lack nothing, a land whose stones contain iron, and in whose hills you can mine copper. But when you have eaten and are satisfied, you must bless the Lord, your God, for the good land he has given you. Be careful not to forget the Lord, your God, by failing to keep his commandments and ordinances, and statutes, which I enjoin on you today, lest, when you have eaten and are satisfied, and have built fine houses and lived in them, and your herds and flocks have increased, your silver and gold has increased, and all your property has increased, and then you become haughty of heart and forget the Lord, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that house of slavery. He guided you through the vast and terrible wilderness of its serpents and scorpions, its parched and waterless ground. He brought you forth for you from the flinty rock, and fed you in the wilderness with manna, a food unknown to your ancestors, that he might afflict you and test you, but also make you prosperous in the end. Otherwise, you might say in your heart, it is my own power and the strength of my own hand that has got me this wealth. Remember then the Lord your God, for he is the one who gives you the power to get wealth by fulfilling, as he has now done, the covenant he swore to your ancestors. But if you do forget the Lord your God and go after other gods, serving and bowing down to them, I bear witness to you this day that you will perish utterly, like the nations which the Lord destroys before you. So shall you too perish for not listening to the voice of the Lord your God. What is mana? That is an intense verse. That's an intense verse. Like, very, 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 very intense. I'm like looking up what mana is. Food for the soul. Energy bites? Mana from heaven? Food for the soul. Mana. Wow. Um, Tamarisk tree. Tamarisk tree. Oh, these are beautiful. The genus of Tamarix or Tamarix is composed of about tamarind is composed of about 50 to 60 species of flowering plants in the family Tamaricaceae. I don't know. Native to drier areas of Eurasia and Africa. The generic name originated in Latin and may refer to the Tamaris River in Hispania Tarraconensis. Father's Day. Wow, it's an invader species. Okay, anyways, that was like very, very intense, that verse. And I have such a reaction to it because I was not expecting that. And it kind of threw me off my game. I'm not going to lie to you because I was just like, whoa. Um, like the idea of them perishing. I'll be honest with you, what I was thinking as I was reading that. What I was first reading is that this was not speaking to everyone, that this was a prophecy that was it was very specifically speaking to like the gods and really the gods of the old world, like the gods of ancient Egypt and those times, beings, people that were beings or people, I don't know, creatures that were a part of the first era of Earth, where there was life, like human like life. I mean, not human like, but like Lemurian times. It's just the best reference I have. Like that era of Earth, the people that were the people of the earth, so animals during that time, and in the next era of Earth became gods. That passage feels like that it is speaking to them and their history and not many people of today, if I'm being just completely honest. The Ace of Wands. Yeah, like that feels like the Bible in many ways feels like the story of your idol. Like it feels like the story or of idols. It feels like the stories of gods. That's what the Bible feels like. It doesn't feel like it's always specifically talking to everyday people. It feels like it is talking to gods. You know what I mean? And I think that see it that way. One, because of the amount of pressure on and expectation surrounding what people are capable of. It doesn't seem like something that would perhaps be accomplished within the human consciousness, but perhaps God consciousness. And it feels like God, um, which could be the next level, talking to gods about what they expect out of them, and what their existence is meant to formulate, like what it's all about, why they need, what's going on with them. The other thing that messes me up about this deck, but that I like, is that some cards are backwards. Obataline. Oh, Obatelami. Yeah, but for some reason I'm thinking of like Percy Jackson. Like it feels like the Bible is written about like people who would have been like demigods. Like, yeah, like your idols, like your heroes. You know, they say don't make idols, you don't praise the idol, you don't praise your heroes, you praise God. Like it feels like these are the gods that they're saying don't praise, because they're not the God that you would think you're talking to, but they are gods. And it's complicated because I don't know where I lie specifically on my take on all of that. It just seems to be that that's what this is. Like they're speaking to the demigods. And I don't know what to say about that, particularly necessarily. But like I'm thinking of like Hercules. Like it's that kind of figure. And I feel like a lot of the different gods, because there are so many gods, but um I feel like that is what they're talking about, and I feel like this is a very specific God. I feel like this is a very specific God that reigns over Earth in the way that uh, he does, and I feel like this is one stream of God, one consciousness of God, or of spirit ultimately. But this God has reigned for as long as they have of the fact that we needed, or that they were raising the next generation, who would eventually help to move the spirit of this planet, or the soul of this universe, into its next evolved state. And the God that ruled over Earth, so the God that's, the one speaking to these demigods in and to the people of the Bible, and of these, a lot of these sacred texts, the ancients, all of that knowledge, the one that's delivering that ultimate knowledge is just a stream of a larger consciousness that we don't know. But a very specific personality, a very specific personality, and very strict, and very blunt, and very emotional. Um, but because they need to be, there's nothing irrational about emotions. Well, emotions are irrational, but there's nothing illegitimate about them. It's just that they are true in a very specific way. And that very specific way needs to be felt and understood, because it's integral to the way that you move through this earth. Um, and it doesn't represent the entire truth, but it does represent a very specific truth that is important to understanding your reality on this planet. And emotions are so powerful, and yet are really treated very, very, like, as if they are minuscule, in terms of uh, relevance, ultimately. And that's just, it couldn't be further from the truth. It really couldn't be further from the truth. But there is like this need to return to this state of caretaker over the earth, because there is a need to understand the origin in order to understand what truly happened. Like, you know how they say history repeats itself? That doesn't need to be a curse in the way that it has been turned into one. what it really the Fool continues to come out. There's absolutely something happening, like, literally, every time I shuffle this, the Fool and the Eight of Cups, like, it's actually kind of insane now. It's actually getting kinda crazy. Like, it's continuously coming out. But, there is this, like, need to return to we're beginning it's the number 8, so it's after the 7th day, which they said it's the start of a new spiritual experience, a new spiritual existence. But what is it? It's cycles. Life goes in cycles, and you do repeat. It does repeat, but it's not the same. So, there is this need to allow ourselves to repeat because what we're going to do is we're going to go back into this caretaker state, and it's kind of out of force, right? Because where climate change is happening. So we're all having to become farmers again. We're all having to become agricultural experts again to understand this planet, to understand it on a very physical, natural level, become the scientists, become the innovators so that we can survive. It's a survival tactic, but that is just a strategy in which the universe is trying to teach us about this next phase. It's a very harsh strategy. It's the one that we chose. It's the lesson that we chose. And in terms of what we really constitutes, it really is just whatever. It is what it is. We can argue for either side, but it's the lesson that we have. It's what we're going to go through. And the way that this cycle is coming around is allowing us to understand what happened in the Garden of Eden and understand what sin is. Like, what was it? Like, we know they ate the apple from the tree of good and evil, blah, blah, blah. But what was that? What was the actual action? Because it happened before people. It happened during the times of Lemuria when the animals were the people of the earth. It happened before the day that people were created in the creation story. So this is going back way, way, way to the beginning. And it's understanding exactly what that action was. What was it that created this entire thing that we're dealing with now? If we can understand the core of what happened, then we are going to shift because you're basically remembering your origin. You're remembering the ancestor that had to do this spell because they had to help your family in this way, and they made this huge sacrifice, and they knew what they were going to do, and they knew what they were going to end up putting their descendants through for generations and generations and generations, but they did it because of this. What is that? That's what we're about to understand. And this is what is not spoken about when it comes to curses and things that your family line has to break and things like that. It's the sentence that you do for a miracle, for a manifestation, for a gift, for a shift to happen. Something had to happen. Things were not all good in the way that it is assumed or said that things are good. People evolve out of necessity. People evolve out of survival. So something happened that made that action be taken that is now constituted as sin. What is that original sin? What is it? We don't know what it was that triggered that, why they did that. Nothing is done without a reason. And we're about to understand what that reason was. And it's going to give us a lot of context for what the Garden of Eden and that era of Earth was really like, and what animal consciousness looks like, and what it had to deal with, and what would trigger such an act that would be so powerful, such a spell that would be so powerful, such a binding agreement that would be so powerful that it would influence the next millions, billions of ages on Earth. And we are now the generation that is at the literal turning point in going all the way back to the beginning of the book and understanding what it was that made Eve do that. What it was that triggered the snake to want to do this. What it was. Why? Why? Like, why? Somebody's got to ask why. Why? And Eve be representing the feminine, and that representing whatever you describe, how whatever that word brings up in you in its truest form in your heart. Because I don't, but that energy, why was that feeling more of an allegiance to understanding and to walking down this path than going straight forward to Adam or going straight forward to God or whatever? Why did it engage in that? What happened? What was that push? What was going on? What's the context? What's the history? We're about to receive a very important history lesson, and it's monumental. I want like it's magnanimous. It's very important in being able to understand kind of all of this. Oh, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good because it's gonna help the underdogs. This information that we're gonna receive is gonna help the people. The capital T people. Like these cards are crazy, by the way. Ace of Swords and the Tower. Literally, you're going to receive information that is going to completely tear down the structures of the systems that we have right now. Like, shit's about to get fucked up. I don't know how, I don't know like when, like the years span or anything like that, but I don't know. Maybe it's 8 years. Maybe it's talking about it's around the fucking corner. Maybe it's talking about it's already here. It's just giving though that that's what's happening. I kind of want to read a card out the deck that but I yeah, like look at all that farming. There's definitely something around farming. The star, like, doesn't this make you think of the baby that's put down the river? It's like the lack of desire is so strong, but I'm also like, okay, fine. Two of Wands. Okay. Okay, the star. Here we find our destiny, the interweaving of our material life and the influence of the stars on our path in this world. In the star card, we realize what nurtures and feeds us across the many levels of existence. We understand where we come from. We understand our origins. We understand our beginnings. We understand what we are made out of. You are made out of the food that you eat. Oh, I was going on this big rant this morning in my head, having this huge argument with the imaginary family that I dream of in the future, and then my family now, just but there in the future, having this conversation. And I was talking about how the only people who really need to eat are women. And I was saying this because I was saying that a mother, through her breast milk, can provide for the entire family if necessary. In an apocalypse, in the most dramatic situation, a mother can provide for her whole family with her breast milk. But she cannot provide for herself with her breast milk. She would need to eat. She cannot have herself. She is the only one out of everybody that really needs to eat. And I feel like there is something to that, but I'm trying to figure out what it is. It's like there's something in the feminine where it pulls from an outside source. It takes something from outside and it brings it within. And that is how it creates itself. It is created from outside material. It is the culmination of the Big Bang. It is the universe. It is the culmination of creation. It is the baby. It is the spirit within the body. That is what it is. It contains, it is the womb, it is the holding place, it is the house. It's the mother. The mother is the mother. But no, seriously. And so that is what needs to eat above all else. And then, other people, yeah, we have food for you, sure. But if we were thinking about an apocalypse, who would be prioritized to eat should be women, because women can then provide the food for the entire community with their bodies. Um, and I was talking about that, and It just made me think about that. And I was talking about how everything you see, everything around us is our ancestors, every single thing, and that's why we need to stop buying so much, and we need to stop consuming so much, because every time we consume, we give new life. Every time we engage in the process of life and death, in process of cycles with things, with material things, we contribute to the extension of our ancestors' soul contracts, which they like a lot of our ancestors are not souls that are living freely. They are souls that are living by the actions of their descendants. That is their thing. That's what tethers them here, and it's kind of a powerless state of being. Because if you're living in a culture, in a present day culture, if your descendants are living in a present day culture where materialism and consumerism is reigning, then you are stuck in this existence of reproduction, reduce, recycle, reproduction, reproduce, repopulate, again and again, rerun, doing the same old cycle again and again and again. 999. Um, Let me just take a note of that. I've just been taking note of all like numerological numer- numerical patterns. I've been just taking note of numerical patterns. People are trying to piss me off. God. LOL. Anyways, um, yeah. So stop consuming because you're extending the life of your ancestors. And it's like, no, not everything does need to be reused or reduced or recycled or anything like that. Like, there is power in choosing not to buy. Like, when it comes to me, I have to, like the way I got out of fast fashion and that form of contributing to consumerism was thrifting. But at a certain point, you have to stop thrifting and you just have to stop buying new things. There's a certain point where we all just have to agree to stop buying things wrapped in plastic. We just have to agree to not consume things that are wrapped in plastic. We have to agree to not consume things that are not biodegradable. We have to agree to just everybody buy a water bottle that you will last you a long time and bring that everywhere you go. If you want to go get Starbucks, fine, but Starbucks cannot give you any materials. You have to come with the materials and they'll put the liquid in your cup. Like, that's the world we have to get to, where people are really, really, really low waste, because all of that waste contributes to the extension of our ancestors' lives. And right now, we have so many ancestors. We are so over congested in the spiritual world of Earth that it is hard to think and to have space to expand and grow spiritually in ways that were not problems in the Age of Enlightenment, during the renaissances of the earlier time periods, during what's it called, the revolutions, scientific revolutions, all of these eras of incredible advancements in technology and intelligence. And that has everything to do with the lack of ability to be highly consumeristic or like highly materialistic, because we hadn't gone through the industrial age yet, and we hadn't gone through the information boom. Like, so many things are happening right now where there's just so much coming in. We're living in a land of abundance right now. We're living in the land of abundance. That is exactly what that verse is. That is what's happening right now. We are literally we are literally living in this state, and this is a cautionary tale. It starts off describing things that feel beautiful, accessible, foods and waters and materials. All of that is what we have right now. We are living on a planet where there's nothing really that you can't get, as long as you have the means for which we consider currency on this planet, which is money. If you have money, you can get anything you need. That was not always the case back then. There's just certain things you couldn't get. It wasn't in season. You didn't have access. It didn't grow here. You just didn't have it. Didn't even know it existed. That's not like that today. Today, you can have anything. but there is a real need to understand when it is important to return back to where you came from, to remember your origin, to remember what created all of this, and to remember the point, how you got here, why you got here, and where you're going next, because this isn't the end destination, because this isn't the most important point. You're not dead yet, so you don't want to reach heaven yet. You know what I mean? Like, you want to keep going. There's clearly a point beyond this. If you feel really comfortable here, it's probably a trap. It's probably a distraction, because you're not dead, you're alive. So if you are in a state in your life that feels like heaven, you probably need to get some movement going, and you probably need to check in with yourself, because you're probably caught. You've probably been sucked in. It's like going to Las Vegas and being in those gambling clubs. Like, you get stuck in there and then you don't know what day it is for 18,000 years, you know? And you've missed half of your life. And that's kind of what happens in a consumerism culture, and it's because of the convenience, and that convenience is a beautiful thing because it's been fought for by our ancestors. But we also have to remember that there's a point beyond this. The point is that we wanted to make sure that we didn't have to spend all day working, all day mining, all day in the fields, so that we could do what? What was it that we wanted to do? There was a reason. We had a desire for growth and advancement and technology, because there was something we wanted to do that we weren't able to do because we had to spend all of our time doing this hard, laborious work. So now our ancestors have created this world for us, and we are living in it now, and now we have to do, and they made major sacrifices by doing this, by choosing to advance, by choosing to become artists, by choosing to create, which is really really what good and evil is. It is being an artist, because being a creator means you always have to be in balance. There's no such thing as unbalanced art. Art is the creation of life, and the creation of life means the creation of death. It's this cycle. It's these sisters, it's the snake, it's the serpent, and it gets such a bad rep. But the ability to create means that you get to grow, means that you get to evolve beyond your state of being, and that was really necessary for our ancestors. It was really important for our ancestors. Why was it really important for Eve? Like, when we're trying to think about the animals from before, when we were here, from in that time, what was it that they didn't have the ability to do, but they had the desire to do? What was not in the Garden of Eden? You know what I mean? What was missing from that? And why? Why was it placed outside of it? Why was it made to be? Why did God make it to be that it had to be a specific choice? You had to choose, that you to decide, to make the decision to place value in this thing. So much so that you would decide that your current way of life was not good enough. It wasn't sufficient, because this is what mattered more. This is what mattered most. Why did you not have the time to do that? Like, what is this type of thing that would take up so much time that you wouldn't even have the time for it in the Garden of Eden, when you're not doing like, what are you doing in the Garden of Eden? You know what I mean? What's taking up your time? So, what was that thing? What was this desire? I don't think it's nothing. I think it has something to do with family, and I think it has something to do with origin and exploration. I think there was a desire to leave this specific state of being to understand origin, and to understand the deeper meanings, the deeper elements. I think it is connected to astrology, because I think that's like, those were the first astronomers, the animals that were looking up to the sky. What were they understanding? What were they thinking about? They were thinking about, but what were they trying to connect with that they couldn't? And it's almost like this idea of playing with time and extending night time. extending darkness because you can only see the stars, you can only see the solar system, you can only see the cosmos in such brilliance in the dark. So it feels like there was this desire to extend darkness as an energy where light really reigned over earth. Light really reigned over the earth, but there was a desire for darkness because it revealed things about their origins that was really important for them to know. And so darkness was a huge desire of our ancestors. Um, and it's interesting to see it, what darkness is characterized as today, but that is what led people out of the garden. That's what led people away from light because they didn't want to see. They wanted to read. Seeing is light, reading is dark. Um, but it reveals so much. And it reveals so much because it has everything to do with community and it has everything to engaging with other people's work. It's like they didn't want to just engage with themselves and with their own centers. They wanted to know, they wanted to build connection. They wanted to understand how they would relate to and belong to other parts of the universe. What would their place look like in other families, in other units, in other cultures, in other experiences? They wanted different experiences. They wanted to experience the range that existence and life has to offer, which means experiencing death because you're immortal. In one place you're immortal. You can live there forever and you will be the same thing forever. Immortality comes with lack of movement. Movement is what creates death because it means one thing is ending so you can do this, and it's a constant cycle. So the desire for movement, the desire for understanding, the desire for introspection, the desire for journeying is what led to this leaving. Okay, and I wonder if the Leviathans, or I don't know anything about what that even is, but Leviathan was just coming to my head as I was trying to say leaving. I wonder if there's a connection between that. Um, okay, okay. If we are lucky, we also find our star through which we might navigate the rest of our life. The rivers play a significant role in the Orisha traditions. It is integral to many ceremonies. Though we may find many Orisha at the river, it is Yamaya who owns the river and its mysteries. She is one of the Orisha responsible for bringing us into the world, and in many ways, it is our mother. It is all of our mother. Just as the river brings life to the surrounding area through providing travel, nourishment, and life preserving water, it is said that Yamaya, in fact, Yamaya, 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 in fact, owns all the water in the world, the ocean, the rivers, and the water in your body. The star is also a card of magic, especially the kinds of magic that come from astrology and nature. We see a bird on the far shore highlighting Yamaya's relationship with the Iyami and their magical nature. Magic of this kind can liberate, empower, or consume a person, so take care to work it deliberately and with consideration. In this card, the bird is on the far shore, away from the more civilized energy of daily life, closer to the wilds of the forest. When we choose or are called to work magic, it is often something quite apart from the life of those around us. With the star, it is important to be aware that no matter what we hope or wish, it will not come to fruition in a healthy way if it's in opposition to our destiny. This is true of magic and also of work, love, and family too. Symbolism. Yamaya's form hidden among the flowing waters. The star and the moon as gateways to other places. Two jars of carrying water. a forest being nurtured by these flowing waters. Divining, this person is ready to lead a more mystical life in contact with their higher self, destiny, and the spirit world. The flow of life is moving them towards who they are meant to be. If they are not paying attention or are resistant, they will waste much energy in going against the flow. You are on the right path. Spirit is choosing you for a bigger purpose. Notice where you are finding friction and explore what you can do to ease that tension. Hydrate, visit the river, and pray for clarity. Respect women. Find your star. This is a really good book. I'm like shook. Whoa, I haven't even seen most of these cards. Okay, anyways, I've got to go. Like, I've got stuff to do. I'm busy. Not really, but I am just gonna go. I have such a desire to like make something. Oh, because I made tea and I was like, I feel like I had something prepared. I forgot about it. But, anyways, it was nice to talk to you guys. Um, what's the card? The Devil. And the King of Cups, yeah, like lots of water energy. As a whole, lots of water energy. It's super interesting. I'm about to like, it's so throwing me off the fact that these cards, some of them are upside down. Because I'm like, why are you upside down? It like really throws me off. I don't like it, but I'm like, I like that the deck is so active. The Fool is also so interesting to me because it just continues to come out. Anyways, I have got to go. Deuces.